Part 2, Living Upward. Why sleepest thou, O my soul, and blessed not the Lord? Sing a new song unto God, who is worthy to be praised. Sing and be wakeful against his awaking. For good is a psalm sung to God from a glad heart. Psalms of Solomon. The Ascension Attitudes, Chapter 7. Why does your soul sleep, my beloved, leaving you in the darkness? Why does it lie buried beneath your awareness, like a treasure chest lying buried at the bottom of the sea? Why has the mind that knows all in the center of your being not broken through to the surface consciousness like Vesuvius erupting? In truth, this is just exactly what the submerged mind is forever trying to do. For centuries, it has been saying to the weary surface mind, "He who loses his life for my sake shall find it." He who loses what he thinks he knows for the sake of integrating the mind in its wholeness will find truth more glorious than anything he has ever dreamed. He who loses his originality for the sake of slipping through the door of everything will find originality beyond description. He who loses his leisure for the sake of studying the true Christ message will gradually find himself no longer in bondage to the duties of the world. He who surrenders on bended knees, humble, empty, and hungry, will rediscover a long-lost fact. The surface mind was never intended to be the center of consciousness. Rather, it is an avenue of awareness in much the same manner that the five senses are avenues of awareness. The eyes are the mechanism, but the mind does the seeing. The ears are the mechanism, but the mind does the hearing. The surface mind, in turn, is the mechanism, an avenue of contact with the world for the true center of consciousness deeper in your being. This true center of consciousness is so fully endowed with my wisdom that the surface mind and its limited knowledge cannot begin to comprehend it. Knowing this, anyone on earth should be willing to relinquish the surface consciousness known as self for the sake of being reunited with the center of omniscience. You know full well that a greater center of consciousness exists somewhere inside your body. But pretend for a moment that no such center does exist. Without it, you will need to take over the operation of your temple. How will you direct your eyes to see? Does your surface mind know how to register an ordinary color? Take yellow, for example. Look at a yellow dress for one full second, and during that brief interval, the electrons in the retinas of your eyes will vibrate about 500 trillion times. All the waves that have crashed upon all the ocean shores on Earth during the last 10 million years would not add up to more than that. While this activity is going on, there are several trillion other things you must get done at the same time. Every cell in your body is like a unique little universe, carrying out its individual work. Yet all must coordinate with the organism as a whole. Can you control the most complex communication system ever conceived, your great nerve networks, without getting at least a few wires crossed? Can you think fast enough to receive and send uncountable numbers of messages in all directions at once? Might you not get so busy and so frustrated you would forget to take the oxygen from your lungs into the bloodstream and send the carbon dioxide out? Or perhaps forget to beat your heart? Not to mention trillions of other things that must not be neglected for a second. Can you think fast enough to direct the activities of your temple? Or will you not bow down instead and wonder why you have been cheated? Why did your physical organism receive such a lightning fast, 100% efficient mind when your own surface mind is so inadequate the two can hardly be compared? Yes, the surface mind is really not a mind at all. It is indeed a misplaced center of consciousness. And when you lose your life for my sake, you find it because the center of consciousness then is able to shift back where it belongs. If you could think fast enough to work your eyes or any other organ in the body, you would not be thinking at all. You would be beyond the realm of thought in the timeless realm of being. This is why the mind of Christ does not have to think. It just is. This is why, down through history, as my children worshiped signs and symbols, prophecies and predictions, leaders and advisors, no substitute was ever found which would satisfy the spiritual hunger. The gnawing hunger remained even when it was not identified as being the need for God. In all the universe, there is only one way to gratify this hunger: through the glory of the risen Christ, through integration of the surface mind with the omniscience of divine being. And there is only one place to begin this integration, right where your consciousness is centered at the moment, in your surface mind. I am a God who requires understanding, and your search for reunification with me is an individual responsibility. Each must learn for himself how to live upward, as it were, through thought into the realm of feeling, and then into the realm of being. This upward movement can begin just where you are, if you relinquish the customary attitudes and fill your heart with a new song, a song of love, a song of praise, a song of gratitude. Love, praise, and gratitude, arising from your heart center in silent expectancy, are the three Ascension Attitudes, those focused attitudes of mind that exalt your feelings toward the Christhood level. As you concentrate on these three attitudes, or one of them, if there is one that seems more natural to you, making them a day-to-day, moment-to-moment, second-to-second habit, regardless of the unpleasant appearances which may be closing in around you. You will be learning to control the random mixtures of your thoughts. It is necessary, of course, to pull your random thoughts together and focus them on that door in mind before you can ease through it. The 3 Ascension Attitudes supply the most important points of focus. They are your keys to the kingdom of true being. As you study the message of the Christ and begin thereby to get acquainted with yourself, the potency of truth will light such a fire of enthusiasm inside you, there will suddenly be a flood of reasons for your heart to sing out gladly. And when your heart begins to sing, it will mean that you are reaching upward from the wheel of cause and consequence to put your hand in mine, giving birth to your wave of determination, showing your willingness for my will to be done. It will also mean that you are praying without ceasing, although you may not previously have thought of love, praise, or gratitude as being prayer. Real prayer, in fact, has become a lost art in the modern age of worldly wisdom. Its power has been discredited. It has been regarded as a way for those of low mentality, the method used by weak-minded beginners, the last resort of sinners. These beliefs regarding prayer are prevalent in many minds in spite of the fact that Jesus, with his enlightened understanding, spent days and nights in devout prayer, and saints throughout history elevated their consciousness to the sainthood level on bended knees of prayer. If you have never glimpsed the door of everything, it is because you, too, have lost the art of prayer. You have held that door in darkness, for if you had searched for it by the light of prayer, it would have eventually stood illumined before your hungry gaze. Contrary to racial belief, prayer is not the words you hastily repeat under conditions of stress when I am suddenly remembered by your surface mind. Prayer is the intense, predominant attitude which your mind and feelings have indulged about the thing important to you. If you pray quickly to me for help, without much feeling, except perhaps that of desperation, then return to the former mental attitudes of fear and doubting, putting your strength behind these attitudes, which becomes your prayer, which drops into the great subconscious reservoir, the quick plea for help, or the predominant steady attitudes to which your feelings cling. If you will put forth the necessary effort to renew your steady attitudes by replacing them with the glad song, the lost art of prayer will be regained by you, and love, praise, and gratitude will become your way of life. When I commanded you to love me with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, I did so because this kind of attitude makes it possible to live upward toward the level of the Christ. It has been hard for you to really love me in the past, even when you tried sincerely, because it is not a function of the surface mind to manufacture love for God or love for fellow man. Truth is needed first, and when it is present, their love will be also. If you hold your mind on the good news of how you and I relate, how we complement each other, how we are inseparably one, whether you are aware of it or not, you will no longer have to force yourself to love me by whipping up a storm of willpower and determination. However, if you fail to hold your mind on this good news, if you hear it and forget it, continue to think of me as a God afar off, in this attitude I will remain too nebulous, too remote for sincere love. Or if, perhaps, you return to the old habit of thinking, I am a God of wrath, waiting to impinge punishment at your first mistake, then fear of me will far outweigh your love. If you go back to thinking you cannot know me until after death, you are likely to wait until after death to feel anything about me at all, especially if you have been deceived into believing that your soul's future is secured through membership in some church. If you think I direct your activities through guiding spirits, you will idolize them instead of loving me as your guiding Father consciousness. For these many reasons, understanding must come before genuine love for me. Understanding will fill your mind with a vision so beautiful, so desirable, so attainable, that you will never have to try to love me. Love will flood your mind and heart spontaneously every time you think of this great vision. As you draw the vision to you, expanding it with all the detail you can gather, it will expand forever. The light of Christ within you will be growing brighter every day. You cannot be in this world but not of it without first fulfilling the conditions that let you live upward until the threshold of that door is crossed. And you cannot fulfill these conditions as long as you insist on worshiping duality, on worshiping the good and evil of the earth. It is necessary to give up your fear of evil and your desire for earthly good before you can become detached from this world enough to claim you are not of it. When you learn that all is perfection in the consciousness of the Christ, it is enough to make even the greatest good of earth lose its glitter by comparison. With all your getting in this world, the truth is the most precious thing you could possess. My word is taught by your friend Jesus, when properly understood and cherished, will set up such a strong vibration in your being that the vibration itself will make it possible to live this truth. And living it will make you free. In view of this, loving me with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength becomes a very natural thing to do. When you have really taken my star of truth into your heart, secreting it in the closet of your consciousness, you will be unable to stop loving me, even if you tried. For regardless of how often your surface mind may shout its doubts, your heart recognizes this familiar word, and your surface mind will eventually be put to shame. The star of truth in your interior will glow zealously as you continue to feed it. And the great day will come when it flares up like a flaming supernova, blending with your light of life. At this time, the Word has been made flesh. One of the powers contained in your sunken treasure chest, the power to quicken and perfect, has been released and augmented by the light of Holy Spirit. Yes, go to whatever effort necessary to learn the message of the Christ. And after you have learned it, you will realize that loving me is one of the easiest commandments that I ever gave. Loving your neighbor as yourself will be easier then as well. For all your neighbors will become an inseparable part of the beautiful Christ vision which is blazing in your heart. No longer will you think of them as individuals cut out from different patterns, some dull-witted, others intelligent, some homely, others handsome, some greedy, others generous, some hateful, others loving. All will blend together in your vision, and you will know that all are really perfect, because I am the light of each one's life. Whatever imperfection your brother or sister may be demonstrating in his actions is caused merely by his own false sense of being a lonely human who has to get along as best he can without me. Realizing this, you can forgive him for all his actions, for he knows not what he does. This does not give you any right, however, to decide he needs converting and try forcing his adoption of your opinions. Nor does it obligate you to listen to his opinions or change your ways to conform with what he expects from you. It does leave you both free to go your own directions, to seek me by your own methods, or not to seek me at all. Loving your neighbor as yourself has little to do with being eager to socialize much of the time. It has little to do with giving in to his dominance for the sake of human harmony. It has little to do with letting your time get wasted away while you indulge his idleness. It has a lot to do with silently holding to your vision of the Christ in him without holding him responsible for acting in accordance with this high ideal. He may be filled with shortcomings, but you are to realize that someday they will all be healed when he decides to hunger for my light. He will rise up from his humanhood like the legendary phoenix arising from its own dead ashes. And as he soars beyond that door, the years the locusts have eaten will be restored to him in full. For all the ages of lost wandering since he fell from the Garden of Eden, along with you, will be no more than a flicker on the timeless face of my eternal cosmos. All those chewed and eaten ages, with their accompanying pain and strain, will be forgotten in the true brotherhood of the resurrected Christ. You are not likely to soar through the door yourself if you have been weighted down with the belief that you must drag your neighbor along. Your responsibility to yourself and me is to keep your mind centered on the greatest good for all. Do not specialize among friends and relatives, while so many of my beloved children the world over are in direst need of prayer. Expand your vision to impersonal consciousness and include them all. None of my commandments are as hard to keep as has been thought, if they are properly understood. I do not want you to exert force or overpowering effort in any one direction. This is not the method used by gentle, sweet, soft-spoken spirit. Rather, I would have you literally relax into an awareness of my presence, letting there be light within while you contemplate the truth for all on earth. Then are you genuinely loving me and your neighbor as yourself. The second Ascension Attitude, which helps you live upward toward the realm of being, is the attitude of praise. It is so much like love as to be inseparable from it. Praise me from whom all blessings flow, and as you do, the all-important Christ vibration will be stimulated in your heart. Trying to make your mind a vacuum and turn off all thoughts will do little to help you live upward toward that door. There is no place in all my cosmos for a vacuum, least of all in the minds of men. Instead, I would have you focus your thoughts on the exalted Christ level and learn to hold them there until my inner peace takes over. Realize that all blessings do really flow from me, and it will help you fill your heart with praise. Every piece of matter you touch was once afloat in the infinite sea of Holy Spirit. Do you not feel a little awe that such miracles of transmutation could happen without cessation and yet pass by unnoticed? Think again of that juicy red tomato as you hold it in your hands. A year ago, before the seed was planted, where were the atoms now packed together into this delicious fruit? Were they not part of my invisible Holy Spirit? No wonder Jesus advised you to consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. Do consider them for a moment. They toil not, neither do they spin, nor do they worry about tomorrow. Their life force draws upon my raw, invisible substance, never doubting, and how well they are clothed and fed. Everywhere you look, if you are honestly seeking, you will find evidence of my omniscience working throughout nature. The basic structural pattern of all matter is enough to fill the surface mind with thoughts of praise and wonder. The atom, like a tiny solar system, is made up of a central nucleus comparable to the sun, surrounded by one or more electrons orbiting in outer shells comparable to the planets. There is a vast amount of space between the nucleus and the electrons. There is eternal motion of each and every part. That tomato, then, which feels so solid to your touch, is more space than solidity, and never for a second are any of its internal elements at rest. Everywhere you look, in nature or in fellow man, if you sincerely want to rise above the prosaic habit of taking everything for granted, if you sincerely want to feel inspired and stimulated to the quickened vibratory rate of praise, you will find factual evidence to feed your imagination. My workings never cease, and there are more wonders right here on earth than this world dreams of, not to mention the myriad wonders of my heavenly realms. I am truly in all and through all. You may watch me in actual expression if you will only open up your mind and take a thorough look. The third Ascension Attitude, embodying the vibration of the Christ, is gratitude. Once again, this attitude is so closely allied with love and praise as to be inseparable from them. When you have accepted the radiant Christ vision and allowed yourself to love it, when you have relaxed your intellect and learned to contemplate my omnipresence, then gratitude will be your natural reaction to it all. As you contemplate the indescribable future awaiting each member of the human race, as soon as he stands up to claim it, gratitude will well up in you automatically, flooding the reservoir of your heart. The vibration of gratitude is such a mighty creative force that it alone, if indulged continuously, could lift you free of the subcreation more rapidly than you realize. Begin to fill yourself with gratitude by contemplating your submerged mind and its many hidden treasures. Give thanks for that mind. Where would you be without it? It is the same mind that you will use to do greater works than Jesus did. It is the same mind that you will use to do greater works than Jesus did. It is the same mind, the same consciousness, through which you will experience the indescribable wonders of my cosmos. It is the same mind through which my light will flow into the body of your ailing brother, so that he may be made whole. You have been living with this mind for a long time. How often have you stopped to marvel at its extensive talents and feel gratitude that such a wonderful endowment could be yours? Multiply this gratitude and give reverent thanks for all the minds of all the men on earth. Think about your heart and its untiring effort to keep your cells supplied with the fluid of life. It is through this presently opening center that the world-shaking vibration of the love of Christ will soon be flowing. As you contemplate the nearness of such an eventful happening, you are entering the domain of mighty faith. Give thanks for your senses and intensify them, every one. It is through these senses that you enjoy my beloved world. It is through these blended senses you will go on to enjoy the crystal beauties of my many waiting mansions. Give thanks for 10,000 other things beneficial to you every day, which you may have been accustomed to taking for granted. Then go one giant step further than you have gone before, and give thanks for the things you want as if they had already come to pass. Look at the grand cosmic being who stands out so sharply in your vision, and give thanks that this holy personage is none other than yourself. He is yourself. He always has been. But since you have let him atrophy, give thanks you can undo the act and see him rise to life. These 3 Ascension Attitudes are your perfectly fitted keys, the keys to the door of everything. These keys are lovingly placed into your hands. You must use them persistently if you would see that door fly open, for it can be unlocked only from your side. Let some individualized aspect of these 3 Ascension Attitudes replace the stream of idle thinking that has been running through your mind, and your heart will be singing a glad prayer of contemplation, the kind of prayer that always brings results. Never think of your problems or shortcomings as you fill your mind with prayer. Contemplating a problem lends the substance of your thought power to it and makes it even more ferocious. In addition to that, the instant the thought of a problem comes into your prayer, your Christ elevation has been lost. Let yourself contemplate only me and the treasures that are laid up in heaven for all my many children as soon as they unlock the door. As you weave these 3 Ascension Attitudes into the fabric of your daily life, you will be filled with great and mighty faith, for love, praise, and gratitude are major components of that essential attribute. Take up your keys, my beloved grand cosmic being. Take up your keys. Open wide the door and enter your natural habitat. Become the prodigal son who has returned to his father's house. All the hosts of heaven are waiting to welcome you home.